Oh, thank you so much for coming and welcome to Beyond Knowledge. We really appreciate you being here. I'm Kristin Hinrichs, and I'm the owner and Chief Effectiveness Officer at Best in Learning, where we source best of category solutions. We're going to hear from a few of the best today. Without further ado, let's dive into our first poll and learn a little bit more about you and your organization. What keeps your training from driving and measuring real behavioral change? Oh my goodness. It's not what I expected at all. There we go. Oh, thank you so much. That's very interesting. We will be addressing each of these today. And you will be learning a lot. And I'd like you to think about during our presentation about different ways that we have and different approaches to fill that gap in the experiential cycle of the knowledge, the application, the practice, if you will, the feedback, and the reflection. Without further ado, Joey, if you could put up today's lineup. Thanks so much. Bernie is going to speak to us about the human element, and Steve Stookey will address a complete learning ecosystem with data-driven efficacy. John Hack will be speaking to AI coaching through Interflexion, and Laurent Rozenfeld will wrap us up with game-based and experiential learning. Throughout today's presentation, if you would put any questions in the chat, we'll be addressing those as we go, as well as at the end. And we'll also be providing an additional wonderful resource via an in-depth demonstrations with a Cypherworx learning path. I'd now like to introduce Bernie DeSantis of Insignia Training Systems, who can provide not only the oversight of the human element, but actually provides humans that you might be missing. Bernie?
Thank you, Kristin. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to take a moment and think about the last time something truly inspired you. It's likely that it wasn't a something, but rather a someone, right? It was another human being. Maybe it was a mentor, a coach, a teacher, perhaps it was a boss or a colleague. Maybe it was a friend or even a family member. Right? While technology will continue to expand and grow at truly an exponential pace, people are and always will be at the heart and center of training and developing other people, right? Many organizations right now are facing the challenges of limited time, limited budget, limited resources, and they're looking for ways to leverage technologies to streamline processes and reduce costs. And while implementing the new tool is the new bright, shiny object, right? It's the human element that can't be ignored because we are training people. There are no shortcuts to that. There's only effective and ineffective. So for nearly 2 decades, Insignia, my company, has provided that human element for our clients. Excuse me. We're talking about some big, well-known organizations like Ford Motor Company, Delta Airlines, Johnson & Johnson, EY, and even Chewy, the pet food company. And for each of them, we've provided fractional designers, facilitators, coaches, producers to augment their staff. We've also supported small companies like one you've probably never heard of, Gerard Training Solutions. They're a boutique solopreneur management training company. We provided him with producer support for live virtual delivery of his training courses. But today, companies are facing reorganizations. They're downsizing. And a lot of times it's causing talent and skill gaps for those companies. Some companies don't have the budget. Again, some don't have the need for, let's say, a full-time chief learning officer, or maybe administrators or project managers or instructional designers or facilitators or producers or coaches or a partridge in a pear tree for that matter. Maybe they only need those resources for a specific initiative or as part of a project team. Maybe the need is for a few hours, a few weeks, a few months, or it's ongoing, but as needed, right? Insignia provides highly skilled and experienced fractional resources to fill the gaps in your L&D talent stack. Advancements in technology like AI, VR, automation, they have undoubtedly changed, right, the way that we train. But despite these innovations, there's one thing that hasn't changed, and that again is the irreplaceable value of human beings in training other human beings. Went too far. So when we're talking about fractional, we're talking about technology, we have to talk about traditional training, right? And let's face it, most traditional training focuses on just delivering knowledge, oftentimes through lectures, through manuals, through sometimes standardized e-learning modules that check a box. And they do have their own value when they're leveraged properly, of course. But here's the challenge. Knowledge alone doesn't create behavior change. Just because someone knows what to do, and maybe even why it's important, that doesn't necessarily mean they know how to do it effectively, or that they're motivated to act on the knowledge that they've just gained. And that is the knowledge performance gap that many organizations struggle with. I want you to consider this. You can watch countless videos on how to ride a bike, but until you get on one and practice falling, adjusting, learning from your mistakes, you won't truly know how to ride that bike. And the same goes for professional training and development. Awareness and knowledge, yes, they precede action, but they don't eliminate the need to apply the knowledge that was gained. Knowledge is only the first step. Without practical application, feedback, perhaps a little bit of emotional engagement, it rarely translates into real-world behavior change. So let's go ahead and launch another poll, Joy. I'd like to know, which role in learning and development do you feel has the biggest impact on driving real behavior change? Is it your trainers and facilitators, right? The ones who are engaging in the live instruction and coaching? Is it your instructional designers who are crafting the experience? Is it learning leaders who are driving strategy, culture, and alignment with the business goals? Or is it managers and coaches, right? People on the front line who are working with the staff. So let's give it a moment. Get some responses in. It's actually kind of what I thought here. All right, Joey, let's go ahead and end the poll, share the results. So again, thank you everyone for the feedback. It seems like most of you are saying managers and coaches. And honestly, I agree, because you're oftentimes spending the most time with those frontline resources. But I would also argue that each one of these roles brings their own unique experience and value to the process, right? Each of the people in these roles builds upon the skills and expertise of each of the previous roles in the process. As Sir Isaac Newton said, if I have seen further, it's because I have stood on the shoulders of giants. So I want to pause for just a quick moment. I want to share some technology and integrate into our presentation so we can stand on the shoulders of a giant in our industry. So here's a whiteboard video from our friends at the Whiteboard Company.
Technology is transforming training in exciting ways. AI personalizes content, gamification boosts engagement, and simulations offer safe spaces to practice complex skills. These tools make learning more accessible, scalable, and interactive than ever before. But the real impact happens when people step in. Skilled trainers bring emotional intelligence like reading the room, adaptability to respond to learner needs in real time, and connection that makes content relevant and actionable. Trainers foster trust, spark discussion, and create the sense of motivation and belonging that drives engagement and retention. They turn abstract ideas into real-world capabilities through coaching, feedback, and conversation. When cutting-edge tech meets the human touch, learning becomes more than effective. It becomes transformational.
All right, as mentioned in the whiteboard, one standout thing that humans bring into the learning process is emotion and emotional intelligence. And while I do love the video, it's really cool, the AI voiceover lacked a little bit of emotion, right? It didn't have inflection, didn't show a whole lot of excitement. The humanness was missing, right? And we as humans can empathize with learners. We can understand their struggles. We can adapt to meet their needs in a way that tech, unfortunately, can't quite yet. And this connection drives motivation. It drives trust and a sense of belonging for our learners. And unlike static content, humans can adjust their approach in real time, right? We can provide context, relate training to specific business problems, and make the material relevant to the unique challenges that our learners are facing. As an example, right, a live trainer might recognize that a sales team is struggling with objection handling, and then pivot that live training session to address that need on the spot instead of force feeding whatever content was on the agenda. And furthermore, transformation doesn't happen in isolation. It's a collaborative process. Humans facilitate discussion. We foster peer-to-peer learning, and we can create and participate in an environment where learners feel safe to experiment and fail. We humans serve as mentors and role models, guiding learners through the complexities of real-world situations using the tools that are available to us. But again, it's the real-world human connection that turns abstract concepts into actionable skills. Technology does offer some incredible tools, no doubt, from AI-driven role play and analytics to digital gamification of content to immersive VR simulations that replicate very dangerous or high-risk blood on the floor type scenarios. But we have to remember that these are just tools. The magic happens when we, as the humans, use these tools to enhance learning, provide feedback, and guide the behavior change. And it's this combination of human insight and technological efficiency that creates a really powerful learning experience that does drive true transformation. And much like Michelangelo and his sculptures, right, he was always refining his skills as a sculptor, right, learning new skills, using the right tools for the right task, implementing the newest techniques that he learned as he went. We today must understand and use the new and innovative tools that are available to us in creative ways to craft learning experiences that stick, but without losing the human touch. So here's one more quick video highlighting some more tech.
Today's most effective learning strategies reach beyond choosing between humans and technology. They blend both to deliver the right method at the right time. Technology offers powerful tools to support learning, simulations for safe practice, AI-driven personalization, and structured content that builds foundational skills efficiently and at scale. Then, humans take it further. Trainers bring emotional intelligence and real-time decision-making to every interaction, using nuanced coaching to turn information into insight through mentoring conversations, facilitated discussions, and hands-on guidance. They apply these strengths to help learners refine skills, solve complex problems, and build lasting confidence. While tech accelerates access and practice, it's the human touch that sparks the aha moments. The most impactful learning experiences don't just transfer knowledge, they inspire transformation.
A key aspect of a successful learning strategy is knowing what methodology to use and when, right? Human versus technology. But the truth is, it's really not this versus that. It's more of a hybrid or a blended approach, right? A combination of this and that to give our learners what they need when they need it in the flow of work in real time. While technology has transformed how we design, develop, and deliver training, one thing that hasn't changed and won't for the foreseeable future is that human element. So as you think about your training programs, ask yourself, do we have the right people? Do we have the right resources? Do we have the right skills and experience in place to accomplish the goal? Then I encourage you to consider using fractional professionals to fill any gaps that you do find. Remember, the tools will evolve, but it will always require the human touch to transform knowledge into impact, and we must go beyond knowledge. Kristin, I'll hand it back to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Bernie. That was a wonderful overview into the combination of solutions that fill that gap between knowing and doing. And then let's go further from doing to actually being. And we're going to do that by following a learning path, most likely. I'm very pleased to introduce Steve Stookey of Cypherworx. They're a learning management system company, and traditionally, I haven't liked those because traditionally they track and report stuff, and we don't really learn from tracking and reporting. Although the data is very valuable to us, we learn from an experience, and that consists of a lot of different components. This one is very different. Steve?
Thanks so much, Kristin, and thank you, Bernie. Thanks everyone for joining us today here. I'm going to share my presentation here with you, and we're going to have another poll. So our question is, how do you primarily measure the success of your learning initiatives? So is your training working? Business performance improvements. So I'm excited to talk to you about these items here today, and we're going to cover a few of these. One of the comments in the chat was about getting engagement from the learners, or excuse me, from the executive team. And that's one of the things that we found was critically important as well. So this is really helpful information, but we're going to move forward. And I realized that probably the learning management system side of things isn't necessarily the sizzle that brought you to today, but hopefully our conversation about our evolution will be helpful to you. So we're going to be talking about learning solutions and measuring the effectiveness. So one of the things that we realized early on as we started was we really wanted to make sure, and this was about 15 years ago, we started out as an instructional design company, and we wanted to start measuring the output really from a data-driven standpoint. And so you can see in the green column, those are pre-test activities. After the training, in the blue column, you'll see the post-test activities. And there's a significant increase in the knowledge, which you would expect, which is great, but we can do better. So we developed this process using efficacy studies to really create a continuous process of improvement, starting off with evaluating what we need to train on, creating that training, providing a survey and pre-test, the training intervention itself, which might be an online course, live training, virtual training, could be a whole cohort, and then also administrating a post-test and post-survey to collect additional demographic information, and finally to review and evaluate the results. As Bernie pointed out, at the end of the day, this is all about people and the human connection. How do we actually get those results to make sure that the learning information is being transferred effectively as we move forward? So in terms of the training solutions, one of the things that Cypherworx does, we started out as an instructional design company, specifically for the world of education. We quickly learned the fact that every organization is different and unique. And so we built our own learning management system, which is very robust, designed to be mobile, and also perfectly suited to be able to use different types of learning modalities, whether it's live or virtual, online, and several of the other fascinating new tools that you're going to see today. And so over time, our team developed a series of a little over 3,000 courses, interactive online courses. And so we deliver those today to organizations as small as 10 employees up to hundreds of thousands of employees nationally and internationally. So I wanted to share with you a little bit of a story of our experience to share with you how we got here, and hopefully you'll pick up some great ideas on how to manage your process as well. And of course, we're happy to help with you with this process. So about a little over 10 years ago, we were approached by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and they were concerned about all of the fact that there was no national standard for zoo and aquarium training for safety, and they were concerned about the government coming in for regulation. So they approached us to be able to create a whole series of courses in the zoo and aquarium world. And as you might imagine, in this arena, there's a lot of exposure to risk and liability. So we're covering everything from breeding and conservation to liability and risk management, working with dangerous animals. So my point here is just to say that these courses and the training that we provide has to be really spot on because in many cases it's dealing with life and death types of situations. So fortunately for us, as we started out as being an instructional design company, we learned a lot about how to effectively create courses. And at the same time, the technology was also keeping up with us. So one of the things that we learned is we want to make sure that we include in our courses things like rich visuals, multimedia, learning games to engage learners, the ability to understand that we're trying to train people with different types of learning styles. So audio, visual, kinesthetic, those types of things. Making sure that we have learning checks throughout to make sure to reinforce that learning, quizzes, and then finally their certificates of completions. And then beyond that, the learning management system is going to allow us to also track and inform the data that we have to make future decisions. So we were feeling very good about our work when we started out with the San Diego Zoo and the AZA. But one of the things that was critically important is for us to be able to share that data. And as you can imagine, at the time, there were still a lot of people out there that were really skeptical whether the technology was going to be as effective as in-person learning, right? So there was a behavior change that had to happen, but we needed to prove that the training was effective. So we wound up working with Dr. James Marshall of San Diego State University, who's the director of education there. And he worked with us on a plan to create efficacy studies to evaluate the courses and the training that we're providing. So again, simply put, you'll see we've evaluated 4 courses initially, with the green column being the pre-test and pre-test information, and the blue column being the post-test information. And so we wanted to make sure that there was going to be a statistically significant difference. And Dr. Marshall was very excited to share the results with us. As you can see, it wasn't certainly by chance that we were effectively transferring knowledge in those online courses. And the reports that are produced are about 30-page reports with a tremendous amount of data, not only showing the change in learning behavior, but also a number of demographic statistics, which provided a lot of very interesting information to help guide us on creating those additional courses to cover all of those areas. The second slide that he shared with us we found was very interesting as well. So you can see on the left side, this is the before, which is the pre-test, and then on the right side is the after in green, of the post-test and evaluation. So you can see on the left-hand side in the blue, there's quite a spread of all of the people in the program that took these courses. It's quite a wide swath, and you'll see that the average score is around 80%. And we were pleased to see that the effectiveness of the training showed out in the courses. Everything moved to the right. Everyone that participated in the courses learn things. Even folks that had been in the industry for decades, we made improvements in those areas. So my point here is just to share with you that this data, and there's a lot more that comes out in an efficacy study, can be really helpful in communicating to your stakeholders and business leaders on continuing to support the notion of professional development. So I'm happy to report that at the end of the day, these 3 items that we bring to the table now, the catalog of courses, the learning management system, and instructional design, we're now providing training throughout the world and internationally in different languages, using this effective model of training, and then consistently evaluating that through that process of continual professional development. So over time, we also became an IASSET accredited provider, which also allows us to offer continuing education credits for the courses taken. And then all of the courses that we create are also ADA WCAG compliant. We want to make sure that everyone has access to effective training. So as Kristin mentioned, we are providing here a registration link to a learning management site. You're welcome to scan the QR code. We encourage you to enter into the learning management system. You'll be automatically assigned a learning path, but you're given free rein to go in and explore any of those items. And of course, we look forward to talking with you and learning about your learning adventure. Thank you, Kristin.
Thanks so much, Steve. I so appreciate that you've developed the wonderful features of Cypherworx in response to customer need. It's a little frustrating to me that we can't take a deeper dive into each of these solutions, and that's exactly what that link is for. If you want to get some additional information or a deeper dive overview, you can get it there. Thank you so much. Our next presenter, John Hack of Interflexion. When I first saw this, I was like, oh, this is awesome. It's an AI application that is actually the application piece. So it is that. Imagine if you were able to take any high stakes conversation or scenario and practice it before you're in it. Wouldn't that be fabulous? And now you can. While I look at this as the practice piece, the piece that's missing, it also can serve as the knowledge piece, and it gives you great feedback that you get immediately that you then reflect on and keeps the learner really engaged in accomplishing expertise. John?
Thank you, Kristin. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. So I'm John Hack, co-founder of Interflexion. We help people develop their conversational skills through AI-guided role play. Let's start with a quick poll here. So how does your company help its people become better communicators, if that's of interest? So we've got people who provide the skills training, both directly and incidentally, others who don't have it. It's definitely the case that no one's chiming in saying, oh, wait, we do have someone saying, no, we're good. We're all great communicators. Congratulations. That's wonderful. So it really is no secret that the ability to communicate is foundational, and that pretty much every organization out there would love to improve their conversational skills of their people. And the question really is, how do you do that? Well, like any other skill, you need practice. You can't hit a baseball by listening to a lecture or learn to ride a bike by watching videos. You have to get out there and play. You need practice with feedback to change behavior and improve performance. You need a coach telling you how to adjust your stance, your grip, and your swing. We wanted to give folks the opportunity to practice in a safe environment before the stakes were high, a batting cage for the entire organization. Unfortunately, human coaches are expensive and can't scale. And it needed to be consistent, not subject to who's delivering the training or the whims of a particular manager. And it should provide analytics, not only to the learner, but for the training organization. Who's doing well? Who's struggling? What skills are easily developed? And which skills do people struggle with? We realized that we could create a batting cage using AI for practicing workplace conversations. Learners would speak naturally, responding in their natural voice with colleagues or customers, and get personalized feedback in a safe environment. Let's take a quick look at how this application runs. Interflexion helps people take the right perspective, convey relevant ideas, and ask good questions. In this scene, Dave is learning how to be a better manager. He must take the right perspective and turn the issue into a coaching opportunity. A fictional employee, Jackie, is asking for help. Her coworker isn't delivering on a project, and she wants her manager to intervene.
I've got to pull everything together, which takes a lot of time, and he hasn't even given me a draft. Can you tell him he needs to get his report to me right away?
Now Dave has to respond.
Oscar should be able to do this. His previous manager recommended him, and he's done good work in the past. Do you know why he isn't getting his work done?
The right perspective is critical. Dave should not focus so much on Oscar, and the feedback suggests focusing on the person he's talking to. He also needs to touch on themes of persuasion and collaboration. And he should ask Jackie to take the next steps. It's now clear to Dave that this is about Jackie, not Oscar. He can play back his response to see how he looked and sounded. Having done so, he unlocks access to an example effective response.
Jackie,
We'll skip the model response here. After getting good feedback and watching that model response, Dave is ready to try again.
Jackie, when you're responsible for a report, you're responsible for getting the team to pull that report together. You need to convince people to work even when they have competing priorities. Collaboration has to be nurtured. What do you think the next step should be?
Dave has taken the right perspective. He's given Jackie suggestions and asked her to take the next steps. That's what a coaching mindset looks like in action. Interflexion. And just to be clear, the AI isn't just a layer on top of a chatbot. It's rules-based. Your curriculum, your culture are the basis of its analysis of the learner's conversation. This is about content. Did you convey the right idea? Did you take the right perspective and ask a right question? It consistently applies those rules so you know everyone in your organization is getting the same guidance. Of course, essential to skill development is giving personalized feedback on what they actually said so that they can improve. The whole stance, grip, and swing thing. We use the transparent rules set by the instructional designer as the foundation for metrics and feedback. And that is what deliberate practice is all about. Our goal is performance, putting the knowledge to use on the job. Most of our use cases are sales and manager training, but we have done everything from de-escalation to job interviews. You can undoubtedly think of opportunities in your organization. But I wanted to take a deeper dive at what we, as learning professionals, can learn looking at a case study. Undergraduate business seniors at the University of North Carolina were given role-play homework to augment a course in organizational ethics. What might we learn about the application of course concepts to conversation? We believed they would get better with practice, and that undergraduates would quickly identify the right and wrong of the situation and do what's right. However, we believed that the need to maintain good relationships would be harder. They can't just throw their coworkers under the bus, but they weren't really getting trained in how to avoid doing that. So let's take a look at the data. We saw a good reduction in the frequency of feedback required to demonstrate ethical courage. Lower scores are better. It means they needed less feedback. That little upward spike was the shift to a new, more challenging scenario as they continued through the homework scenarios. And in general, what we see is that the more they practiced, the better they got. They needed less feedback to accomplish the conversational aims. And we've seen data like this before. Deliberate practice does improve performance. When it came to concepts, we saw in the data that the learners quickly and consistently did the right thing, often without any feedback. That's the green line along the bottom. But focusing on relationships did not happen at first. They needed multiple rounds of practice before maintaining relationships caught up with ethical duty. But they got there. This has significant implications for how we teach. If we know the skills that our people struggle to transfer, we can adapt our training materials and focus on helping them internalize those particular skills. So these analytics are not just about the learners, but the effectiveness of our training programs. One last data slide. After the class had ended, the professor wondered if those who excelled in class were also best at demonstrating the skill in role play. The scatter plot shows that, except for a few students at the very bottom of the class, there is no relationship between test and written paper performance and conversational performance. I want you to think about that. If classroom performance doesn't predict job performance, what does that mean for how we train conversational skills? Deliberate practice develops skills, which are the foundation of performance. Conversational fluency was the outcome we sought and achieved, and the analytics delivered the bonus of improving our curriculum. So that's a little bit about Interflexion and some of the work that we've done. Thank you for tuning in. And Kristin, back to you.
Oh, thanks so much, John. I just, every time I see this AI application, it's amazing. I really, really appreciate that it's a tool that hits everything in that continuous improvement cycle. And you just keep doing it over and over and getting better and better. I'm really excited to introduce our next speaker. We're getting to the fun part. Laurent Rozenfeld produces some of the best game-based learning I've ever seen. I often get asked for simulations and VR-like immersive experiences, both for teams and individuals. And of course, it's highly engaging and it's a wonderful, wonderful form. And as the technology has been evolving, it's getting reachable to do from a cost standpoint. It's just wonderful. L&D is learning and development, Jesse. Thank you so much. So we have to be careful of our acronyms. I'm very pleased to introduce Laurent Rozenfeld of Beyond.
Thank you, Kristin, for your introduction. And hi, everyone. So my name is Laurent, and I'm the co-founder of Beyond, and I specialize, as said, in game-based learning. And today I would like to challenge you about the use of traditional L&D practices and see how we can uncover and how we can make learning more engaging, effective, and impactful. But before we dive in, let's have the last quick poll and find out more about your L&D culture. So when it comes to workplace learning, which statement best describes your employees' behavior? Okay, this is getting interesting. So we really see a little bit of everything. So apparently continuous learning is leading with compliance driven being second. I expected this to be a bit like that. This is interesting. We're going to use it in the presentation. So thank you for your answers. Okay, so for years, organizations have equated training with learning, especially with the ascension of what we call e-learning rather than e-training. The assumption is simple: if employees complete a training course, they've learned a skill. But is it really true? And how can game-based learning help? Now let's take a step back, exit the conventional, and actually start the presentation with my conclusion. Game-based learning and gamification, which are not the same thing, are not about using games in the corporate environment. It's about sparking the desire to learn and grow using game mechanics. And it starts with reframing your own mind as the L&D manager or organizer. It doesn't matter what game you're using, how often you're using them, or even when you're using them. It's like the chicken and the egg question. It's not about the answer, but about the thinking process that you're using. In most traditional learning systems, the process is actually pretty straightforward. You acquire knowledge, you practice it, and then you get assessed, usually having a quiz or a test. Now think about learning to walk, or as we've seen before, riding a bicycle. You don't study walking manually by reading first a manual and then practice in slow motion how to walk and finally get a quiz or a walking exam. No, it all happens at once. The learning, the practicing, the getting feedback. And of course, you have coach, mommy or daddy that will be helping you. So why do we always insist on putting a specific order? What if the real magic of learning lies in rethinking the sequence entirely? After all, the starting point or the main reason for you to start learning is never the same. It could be linked to an experience you had, a moment of reflection about a specific topic, or a necessity, a specific skill you require for your work right now. What if we could blend all of it, the cycle of experiencing, reflecting, thinking, and acting, and putting it all into one? That's where experiential learning and game-based learning really thrive, not in the order, but in the flow. Knowledge and skills aren't isolated. They're deeply intertwined. You can't develop real skill without having some knowledge. And true knowledge doesn't stick without experience. How many teachers have you had at university that never actually done anything related to what they taught you? It's through linking ideas, making connections that humans build both. And that's exactly how AI is trained today, through this neural network. And talking about AI, which is actually reshaping the world right now, there's one thing that is certain. The way we're learning today will dramatically change. And I expect to see a lot more of game-based learning and gamification in coming very soon. Now, these types of neuronal pathways that we've just seen are often visualized in gaming environments, like most often in role-playing games, as what you can see here, which we call skills trees. It's a very powerful way to map how knowledge and abilities evolve based on learning and experience while playing. So the character in the game evolves based on the choosing of the player, based on what he has done during the game, experiences, and learning process. Isn't it interesting? While LMS platforms, like the one we've seen from Cypherworx, provide structured learning content and a way to track the progress, gamification tools, like the skills tree that we've seen just before, can elevate the whole experience by offering, for example, non-linear learning paths, which are tailored to each learner's needs. Instead of focusing one step after the other, you can use the tree to grow and learn what you really need. Add to it the efficacy studies of Cypherworx, and you've got a very powerful system for measuring real impact of the learning process. Now, the goal is to personalize the journey without actually changing the whole system. And with AI in the mix, adapting content and pacing to each learner will become seamless. Again, it's not about using games, but about using game mechanics and the thinking process of gaming. Now, we can all agree that whether you're learning how to use a new software, practicing karate in a dojo, or how to cook, the real development involves those three key layers. But unlike what we've seen in the baby slide, experience is what should be the real assessment, not a quiz or any other type of test. How often do you bake the perfect cake at home? And if you're not baking, maybe doing something else, only to completely mess it up when you're somewhere else, for example, at a party. Same recipe, same steps, different results. Gaining experience in the real world chaos is true feedback and assessment, not a quiz. And when you succeed there, that's when you know that you have actually mastered the skill. Take Interflection's AI training, for instance. You could program it to be a trainer that you can use daily to learn about communication, whether it's about sales or any other topic. But you can also add to it a layer of chaos and train with it in very unexpected situations while not living it in real life. Most corporate training stops at theory and a bit of guided practice, especially in compliance-driven business cultures. And I guess that some of you may confirm this. But real learning happens by putting knowledge into real testing situation, when the environment is unknown, when things go wrong, when people have to actually think, feel, very important, and adapt in real time. Well, getting back to our original assumption that training someone means that they've learned, it's actually wrong. And if we don't challenge this assumption, we keep building programs that tick boxes, but don't change behavior. And ultimately what happens, we waste time, we waste energy, we waste budget, and we don't really improve the performance. And what we need here is a shift from have they been trained to have their learned applied and improved. And this is for those who had the lifelong learning process, probably can acquire with it. Now, this is also where approaches like game-based learning, simulation, and experiential learning as a whole can really come in, because they can bridge the gap between the theory and the reality through practice. Now, game-based learning works. Why? Because it really taps into core psychological drivers, much more than your traditional training. The dopamine response is much higher, so you have more attention. The challenge reward system keeps learner more focused or motivated. You really feel the consequences of your actions and decisions while playing, unlike a more passive training course. And when you learn with others and through others with team play, well, you learn much more about yourself, about empathy, understanding, and other important soft skills. With Beyond, we're breaking the mold of conventional learning. We're being messy, mad, experiential. We use 3D, AI, real-time systems to simulate reality. Because if reality is used to, if games are used to mirror the real world, why not use this tech, this mechanism, in order to train people in the real world? And as Bernie would say, technology is just the tool, it's not the teacher. And that is why our games are always facilitated by real experts. Now, talking about games, let's have a few examples. Here, we created Space Sites a few years back for NG's new engineering team. Very important one, actually. After a week of exploring Insight's discovery model, for those who don't know, it's a psychometric tool like DISC. The team learned how to use it by in the traditional way, by doing some role play, some feedback sessions. But after a week of using it, the real test came, and it was this game. Now, in the game, as there are 4 energies, like in DISC, in the game, there are 4 rooms embodying each one of those energies. And the team had to work together and rotate between the rooms in order to discover the different energies. As the team rotated, something really incredible started to happen. White people started to lead. Extroverts started to actually shut up and listen. Everyone started to think and behave like someone else based on the room where they were located, meaning that the context has had a real impact on the people. Now, even the Insights coaches that were following the training were really surprised, because teaching the model, which is very abstract, is one thing, but actually living it is something very different. And by the end of the session, they didn't just understand the theory that they were supposedly practicing for a whole week. They really felt it. They became it. And if you ask them today, a few years later, I'm pretty sure they all remember it. The Mansion is another example. It's a unique escape room style game, and we develop different ones of that kind, where we explore team dynamics. It begins with 4 teams, again, which are locked in separate rooms, and they need to collaborate across the rooms to escape. And as they succeed, doors open and they start merging. So from 4 teams, they become 2, and then finally 1. This forces the players to adapt their communication, leadership, and information sharing methodologies. This format is extremely interesting in order to observe real team behavior in action. It can be used to assess team cohesion or bottlenecks, what is going wrong actually with the team. It can reveal leadership patterns and decision-making styles. It can measure soft skills adoption after training and find out if they understood what they actually trained for. It can be used for recruitment purposes, and the beauty of it, you can even combine all of that. Now, game-based learning isn't just for teams, it's also a way to enhance individual learning by transforming, for instance, traditional video format into something more immersive. Now, I would like to introduce Broken Trust, which is our latest interactive game, actually launching end of this month. It's a solo investigation game where you explore a company that collapsed after a social engineering attack. So it's really about a cybersecurity awareness campaign. So it's not a passive video. In here, you have to actively drive the story by using keywords in different videos in order to find and reveal crucial scenes. And this will drive actually the understanding of what happened to the company through a psychological the psychological impact that it had on the employees of the company. And broken trust is just the first part of this whole campaign, where we'll be having people play the hacker, where they will be discovering much more about deepfakes, about cyber threats, about AI, and the like. So let's have a quick look.
I let go of Gourmet Haven, and somehow I found something new, something smaller, yes, but also something better for me, because
I always thought I was the one who held things together. The responsible one, the planner, the one who had all the answers. And
she was polite, she didn't scream at me, but I
Claire didn't have the luxury of breaking down. Not like me, not like Anna. She had to be the one making the calls.
An example on how to transform a compliance training, for example, about cybersecurity, into something that is much more immersive, where people actually have to think instead of just listen. The participant or the user, they're acquiring the knowledge by making relations between the different videos. They understand what happens in the story, and based on that, understand how to protect themselves. And as I explained, this is only the first part of the whole campaign. Now, when should we start using game-based learning? I would say yesterday, but I guess that will be difficult. Timing doesn't matter. What matters is, as I said before, it's creating a shared desire to learn. Gamers are all about evolution, improvements, and growth. This is why gaming works so well. Every learner is different. They have their own pace, path, preferences. So how about letting them learn as themselves, and at the same time have them step in the shoes of someone else? Because relearning happens outside of your comfort zone. So don't just do compliance, guys. Go beyond. Thank you for listening, and back to you, Kristin.
Thank you so much. I hope that there's something here that sparked your interest and will solve a problem or a challenge that you're currently facing. I'd love to have a conversation with you, and you can reach out to me with any questions. Laurent, we actually did have a question in the chat about your images. And John piped in and said that they were AI created. How did you create those images?
Everything is AI created. Also in the game, everything is AI. Videos, AI, sound, everything is AI. But it uses plenty of different tools in order to achieve this.
Awesome.
So I can make a whole list.
Awesome. During this journey, I know that Laurent and John Hack also assisted me in learning how to prompt AI. And one of the most useful things was, they said to think of it like a tireless intern, kind of at my beck and call, and keep asking and keep refining. So that was very interesting. You'll see in the chat how to connect with me. We will also be, of course, following up with a recording and various resources for you. I really thank you for your time. We're getting close to the top of the hour. Are there any other questions?
Elena, I saw your hand up. You have the ability to unmute now. Go ahead and come off mute.
This was so fabulous. I feel like I'm back in the dark ages, I must say, but very, very interesting. I just wanted to ask Laurent, you mentioned VR at one point, and I wanted to know if this last example that you gave us uses, like, when do you use VR?
So in the examples I've shown here, we don't use VR, though 3D games can be done in VR. It's very important to understand VR is very complex to use, especially in teams. VR today usually is used more for routine training. So for example, when you have specific tasks, the moment that you want to apply it for team trainings, it becomes a logistical nightmare.
Okay.
what we do is we have the technology and we create teams or games, sorry, that kind of simulate the idea of being in VR without you using all the VR tech. But if needed, and actually for the cybersecurity campaign we're working on, we're actually also building a VR game.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That was wonderful. All of these presentations were awesome, really wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Kristin,
Elena.
Bernie.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Jesse, you got your hand up.
Yes, thank you. So, to the presenters, and just curiosity, we talked to a lot of executives. Devil's advocate, what's the pushback? Why would they not want to utilize the strategy, the gaming, the approach? Please share.
I'll take a stab at that. What I assist my customers in doing is defining the alternative methodologies to use, depending on what the desired outcome is. So we're wanting to get from objective to actual outcome. So that would be usually a combination of solutions, because if it's a straightforward answer, Jesse, you already know, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to use this for this. For instance, I have a customer who said that they wanted to use an immersive situation, but the topic that they wanted to train on wasn't appropriate to put in an immersive situation because it was policy and we really couldn't change anything. And that's silly, because policy is something that is only knowledge. You really don't have to get beyond that. So don't spend your budget there, but spend your budget on the things that matter, the behaviors and the performance where there's gaps that make the most difference in an actual business outcome. The other interesting thing about incorporating an interflexion or a beyond piece are when it's really high stakes. I've used Interflexion. Obviously sales is a natural fit for practicing responding to an objection or to, those are obvious high stakes conversations, right, that people need practice on. But it's also a really high stakes situation if you're a C-level executive and you're presenting to the board of directors. And what's interesting with AI is that we can also, as Laurent indicated in his presentation, you can program that the personality, actually, of who you're responding to. And so instead of having a nice little sweet person that is your imaginary customer, have someone who has a really short temper. Because if you can respond in a difficult situation, you'll respond very well in reality.
And just if I could, oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
Okay, sorry. I was just going to very quickly, Jesse, we also find that many learning and development organizations are already overworked, and even if they see the value of something, it can be very challenging for them to, work the new tool in through, they've got to work with IT, so I think that's another area that, is a real challenge for folks.
And if I can, let me just add that I think the key issue is that it depends on the executive team, right? Chances are they haven't seen the data of the effectiveness. So the clients that have a good culture of professional development are typically more profitable, more effective. They have less turnover. They're less likely to have injuries and deaths and risk and all of that type of thing. So it's typically they haven't engaged in the actual data. Happy to share that with you too.
And I'll second Steve's sentiment by saying, oftentimes it's a culture thing, right? A lot of organizations have the death nail in the coffin of this is how we've always done it. And unfortunately, if they are not ready to make the change, they are not going to invest in new technologies and training solutions.
It's like that's why I also had this poll before my presentation. The thing is very often that we provide, or companies provide, training when they deem it necessary, not necessarily on the long run. So you come, you do a training, and then they believe, okay, the employees have what they need in order to improve the work. But actually, it's much more than that. And this is why I say also game-based learning. It's not about just, play a game, learn from that game, and that's it. No, there's much more to it.
So interesting. Thank you. And it's funny, everything that all four of you or five of you just said, I've heard the pushback in all different lights, and it's amazing. Literally from not even knowing the term gamification
Yes.
to just not fitting in the time to a culture,
Mm-hmm.
even literally a chairman of the board of one of the largest companies, and they didn't have the power or know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
So bravo. It was good that you picked on it. So thank you.
Yep, and we start with a business use case, right? And start small and do it and prove it works, basically. Do a pilot.
Yep. All right, we are a little bit over on time, but obviously valuable discussion and questions here. Glenn, let me put it over to you. Ask us what's on your mind, brother.
One question I have, I really appreciate all of the information that came through. Just fascinating. How technical can you provide this information? And my example would be boiler technicians who have to get heat on in a building and prevent it from freezing. And again, it's high stakes. You can't just walk away from it. You also have a lot of things, electrocution, you have gas leaks, all those things coming into play. How technical can you get? And is it specific to a brand or can it be generalized? How does that come into play?
Oh, that's a perfect application. It really, really is. I am utilizing Laurent and Beyond and that experiential thing in a safety compliance situation, right? And it was fire, because you can simulate being in that environment and making sure that they're choosing the right protective equipment and do a virtual scenario so that if they choose the wrong thing, they literally get burned in the scenario, right? And they're going to remember that.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to remember necessarily, okay, what piece of protective equipment do you use? But if they're doing it in that real simulated environment, it's amazingly effective and memorable. And I love that about, safety and compliance is usually so incredibly boring, but making it story-based and immersive and that they're actually in the situation to make their choices makes it truly impactful.
I love that.
With technology today, I would say that the almost unlimited, right? So we can create training experiences for the medical industry, fire and EMS. We've already done those types of things, but technology really lends itself really well to work with an instructional designer to do almost anything that you can imagine.
Yeah. AI
Beautiful,
is
thank you.
AI is helping a lot also to reduce the cost of and time to develop such solution. The interesting part is that you can do everything online. So basically, with SCORM, you can integrate it into any LMS system so that you can follow up with how the learners evolve. And at the same time, if you use, for example, conversational AI, such as Interflexion, you can integrate it in a crisis situation. So you are in a building on fire, you have different possibilities, but you have actually no clue what you're supposed to do. Call the fireman and have a quick conversation, ask quickly questions, and you have a limited time, and he will tell you what you should or shouldn't do. And then try. And this is a way to be actively learning rather than passively learning.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks for the question.
Elena? Oh, you're on mute. There we go.
Okay. This is so interesting. I love it. I just wanted to say, and I know Kristin knows this, about the idea of pushback. You're always going to have it, especially if you're, proposing something new or avant-garde. You're going to have your devil's advocates and your naysayers. And I'd like to invite those, like have the client tell me who they are, and then invite them politely to come to the pilot. And, it shows how confident one is in what you're offering. number one, and usually in my experience, they are won over or a little bit softened because, as most of us know, those people, you don't know what happens behind the scenes, and those people can be your deal breaker.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Kristin knows that.
Yeah, Elena, experience is everything, right? You can conceptually talk about any of the things that we've talked about on this webinar today, but if somebody doesn't have the context to understand what it means and how it applies to their business, the experience shows them that, right? It shows them that value. Yeah, absolutely.
So if you can drag them kicking and screaming,
Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
offer them ice cream at every break.
Great question. Great question. Jesse, you popped something into the chat. Thank you for the responses. Yep. So, okay. So alignment, do the presenters all offer pilots? I think we all in some way, shape or form do offer the ability to sample to some degree, everything that we do. So if you're interested in having further conversations, Jesse, tip of the spear, as it were, is going to be Kristin. She's kind of quarterbacking everything for us.
Do you guys actually all put this together as a package?
Oh, it can be. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. I didn't just picked up on that now.
Right. So I represent multiple solutions, like probably 80 of them. And these are just a few of the best of category. And so, depending on what you need, you might not have seen it here, but I'm happy to discuss what exactly the business need is and get to what the possibilities are. I'm pretty sure I know about most of them. I pride myself in going out and discovering, right? And, pretty frequently a customer will throw me something new. And so that's how I keep current, is responding to an actual business need.
Well, perfect. I'll put my input, Kristin. We can connect offline. I do have to run.
That'd
Thank
be
you all,
awesome.
everybody.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for joining. Really appreciate you taking the time with us today, and we'll hope to see you next time.
And
Have some
thank you
conversations.
for coordinating. This is wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you, Elena.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day, everybody.
Take care.
Let's fill those gaps. Thank
That's
you
right.
so much.